Right, so hello,
Hi.
welcome, Andrew Chevalier. And thank you so much for coming to talk to me. We have known each other for several years in a
Yeah.
professional capacity, maybe, but also not so.
Well,
Uh,
your version of professional, which
Potentially,
which is professional plus.
right? Oh yes,
It's,
correct.
it's like you get a job and a family.
True.
Yeah.
So, just to explain, Andy has worked for Hot Buckle for, I don't know, several years, I suppose, on and
Yeah.
off. Um, so you first came and worked with us on David Copperfield?
No, I did the second half of Les Mis.
Oh, yes, you did.
I had a week's rehearsal before the spring tour of Les Mis,
Wow.
and I was told to learn my lines before I got there, which I did, not having realised that nobody else learns their lines. And so my first day of rehearsal, I knew my lines first of all better than anybody else, and
I
knew their
love
lines
it.
better than anybody else, but also never got a single cue line that I was expecting.
Got it. Yes, that's very Hot Buckle, isn't it? So you
So
kind of were Smuggy McSmugalot, but then really not,
I,
because
I was just confused. Yeah,
I love
I didn't know
that.
what play we
Bless
were
you.
doing.
My God. What a baptism of fire that must have been.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. Love it. So yes, you like many of the other actors came and lived with us while you rehearsed and so became part of the family. It's all right. Good
it
food.
was it was a delight. The food was great. Like doing homework with the kids,
Oh.
and yeah, eating together, and obviously the hot buckle way of rehearsals are quite fun and leisurely. So there was plenty of free time, plenty of drink. It was just wonderful. Yeah.
So, background is you live in Brixton, correct?
Yes.
With
Yes. I
your
live in Brixton with
beautiful wife.
my wife and two children, two young kids. So I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. And we've been in Brixton. I moved to London to go to drama school in 2009, graduated 2010, and then I think started hot buckling in like 2012.
Oh, okay. So that
Y-
was quite soon after drama school then.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I did a play with another castmate, Emily, and she maybe it was later than that. I don't know. But then she got in touch to say that they're auditioning for Les Mis Part 2.
Ah,
So that was
okay.
LinkedIn.
So tell us a bit about your life, your career, what brought you to, being an actor, and yeah, before COVID.
Before COVID. So the acting thing was always, I think I did a school play when I was 11, and that was like, I was like, I'm going to be an actor. That's all I want to. I remember walking down a street in my hometown near Kingston in Greater London, and walking down thinking, me and Tom Hanks are going to put the same thing on our occupation form one day. We're going to both write actor, and so that was kind of it. And then went to drama school and studied drama, not realizing that was a complete waste of time if you want to be an actor. And then because my family had absolutely no idea how you get into the biz and what to do, so kind of did that, and then ended up living in Canterbury for the first few years of when I was first married, and then moved to London for drama school. And then it was a lovely first few years where I got involved in a great theatre company that they were really trying to develop an ensemble theatre. They were based in London, ensemble company. So you would get cast in several different shows. We'd put them all on at once. And then throughout the year, there were various different shows, and they always happily coincided with Hot Buckle. So I had a few years where I could plan my next kind of 2 years back to back of sometimes acting in London, sometimes being on tour, lovely jubbly. And then we had a child, and that changes some things. And so I decided I didn't want to go on tour anymore. I kind of limited much more of what I wanted to do. The theatre company, the ensemble theatre company, started to diversify a bit and do less things as an ensemble. So that didn't happen as much. And so in that kind of time, I built a voiceover studio so that I could be a bit more in control of my workflow and be a bit more sort of nimble and yeah, a bit more flexible with my time, because I was doing my day job would be working in a box office, and so I was doing that on the days that I wasn't kind of hot buckling or with the other
Mm,
theatre company, or it was always a bit of a juggle.
okay.
Needed to earn a bit more money, and and I had the fourth year of my degree. I did a 4-year degree, and the fourth year of my degree was entirely in radio drama. So I just studied radio drama for the whole year. We made a radio play,
Ah,
and so I had expertise in the kind of software and equipment and how you kind of voiceover was a natural kind of fit for me. So I
I
did that
didn't
for,
know that about the radio stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
And then since having kids, I've massively limited what I've wanted to do acting, not what I wanted to do, but what I've been willing to do acting wise. And so the only real theatre that works is children's theatre because it's daytime shows. So I've done a few productions with the Polka Theatre that I know you know in Wimbledon, and that's been absolutely completely brilliant and lovely, and hope to do that again. But that is a set of shows that works really well because it's daytime. I'm home in time for bath and bedtime and all that sort of stuff, and that works great. And that kind of takes us up until about now, when the world ended.
When the world literally ended.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting about the polka. Yeah, I got a job once with the polka, and
Short-lived.
then got pregnant.
Yeah.
You've heard that story.
Yeah.
So I became pregnant Beauty because I was going to be Beauty and the Beast, and then I couldn't do it because health and safety. Can't have a pregnant actress.
No.
No, why would you? Of course you can. How
Of course
ridiculous.
you can, and you probably shouldn't fire her. Although it does tell a different story about Beauty, doesn't it?
Potentially, but I don't think I would have shown by then.
No.
I was very early stages.
I don't think.
However, in retrospect, I was sick as a dog, so it may not have been very pleasant.
Yes.
So, how has it affected you then? Simple as that.
I mean, probably in 3 different ways.
Mm.
So I probably should have said in my acting life, I'm also a member of a co-op agency. So for those people that wouldn't know, you're an actor and an agent. And so I have various days of the month where I am working as an agent for myself and for other actors that are part of the agency. And so the first thing is I've seen the work massively deplete. There's, it kind of ebbs and flows. A few weeks ago, before we went into the second wave, work was sort of picking up. People were thinking about Christmas and Christmas shows and that sort of stuff. And then it's just, cancelled shows or cancelled auditions or just far fewer breakdowns for actors to be put up for. So there's much less work. So where I've limited myself, now there's basically nothing I could do acting wise. So that's one thing. And well, that's 2 things. That's acting in general. That's acting for me. And then the joy of living in London has been sapped entirely because as you say, I live in Brixton. It's great to hop on the tube or cycle down to the South Bank or jump on a bus and head somewhere. I don't do any of that anymore. There's nowhere to go to. There's no theatre to go and see. I used to see theatre so often. I miss it desperately. And now I'm just left in kind of the less desirable streets of Brixton. Kind of, you wander the streets seeing the fly tipping building up, and that's your day-to-day experience.
No, I mean, people say it is like a ghost town. Is it, or is that an exaggeration?
I haven't seen it. I haven't been on a tube since, for 8 or 9 months. That's insane. I just haven't been there.
That's so weird.
It's really weird.
Really weird. Has Joe's been working? That's your wife, Jo?
Yeah, so she's
a primary school teacher, isn't she?
She's a primary school teacher. So we had the school closure, when was that? March time. And so they got through to the end of, got through to July doing homeschool. And then really the summer was kind of a little eye in the storm where you got to do some stuff and it was quite nice and everyone seemed a bit more relaxed.
Yes.
And then we're back into, obviously school is happening now. So my wife and my eldest are at school.
Okay.
So
how do you feel about them mixing and being at school and working? And
I don't know really. Like everything, you kind of, I guess you need the schools open to keep people able to go to jobs if jobs can be open and that sort of stuff. It feels like.
Okay.
Have
you had any financial support from the government?
Yeah, so the 2 rounds of the self-employment scheme, I took both of those, and that was great. one of the other sort of day jobby things I do every year is work for Wimbledon tennis, and I've got a really good role in the tennis, and and that's a nice earner. Don't tell them that, but that's a nice earner for the few weeks that I do that a year. And so that was a big loss. Not that that was under the self-employment scheme, but
Okay.
it helped to have the self-employment scheme because that made up some of the shortfall. And then you're also allowed to work under it. So I've been able to do the voiceover stuff as well.
Right. And
So
how is the voiceover stuff going then?
yeah, it started off with a couple of jobs being cancelled. Things weren't going to happen.
Right.
And then there was probably a month where very little came in. It just went quiet. And I think basically everybody was readjusting. How do we do our business in this world? And how do we do adverts? And how do we do, anything in kind of the new world we find ourselves in? And then when people started to figure it out, then the work came in, and it's been pretty consistent. I actually had to run down this morning and do a job this morning. And
That's
before
great.
so it's good. Yeah.
You have a voiceover agent.
No. I have a studio, and I mean my agency would represent me if voiceover work came in through the agency, but I do there's various companies online that I am affiliated to and will get work that way.
Well
So it's
done.
normally it's not the big money stuff. It's not
Okay.
Sean Bean doing the O2 ads or
Yeah.
guy from X Factor. It's the smaller kind of piddly stuff, but
It all adds up.
it adds up and it allows the flexibility. I've got this, I'm on my third studio, and this one is quite good in the house now, and it's so it's just my commute is down a back staircase.
So potentially, if we went into another full lockdown, or if things stayed the way they were even for the next 6 months, would you guys be okay financially?
I think we would. You couldn't. I think the good thing about, obviously Joe's on a government employment, so they're not going to get rid of teachers. So Joe's wage comes in, and then as long as the work comes in, that's the problem. You never know.
No.
But I think voiceover is here to stay. I've certainly helped several actors set up their own voiceover studios in this time, because it's one way.
I think one of the problems that Adrian is facing is that because he set himself up and he joined one of those companies I think you were talking about. But unfortunately, this is every actor in the entire world is now doing this, So it's a great medium, and yes, it's exactly what we can all do. But unfortunately, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is doing it.
Yeah.
So yes, it's very competitive, and you've done very well in the sense that you're already established. So you've already got your work. Yeah. So that people can see. Yeah. So such a chicken and egg, isn't it? So
it is. I also think though that there's probably a little misconception that often actors think, oh, that's something I can just do. But I think what me and Ado probably have a slight edge on is the technical side that we're both good at as well.
So you don't feel that there's a kind of a secret necessity to think sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning about whether you need to change career and what you would do? And
I mean, that was more of a thought before COVID. What the heck would I change to? Yeah. What is still there? Like I have absolutely no idea what I would. I didn't know what I would swap to before, but now
so even when you were kind of like studying or thinking about going to drama school, whatever, was there never a kind of, I'll give this a go, but if not, I'll fall back onto this thing that I really like or good at? Or no?
No, sadly not. No.
Ado's
to be skilled in something else would be great.
Yeah. No, it's funny, isn't it? Well, it's not funny at all. It's really not funny.
But I do think also, like, there is a sort of, in the acting world, there is a survival of the fittest. And I kind of think because the voiceover is going okay, is survivable, as long as I just keep plodding along with that, and I keep feeding my children, then that's kind of like a win. And other people will die off, and I'll swoop in at some point.
Listen, it's a plan.
Yeah,
it actually is a plan. Let's not.
And older actors are a bit more kind of employable than the billions of younger ones. So
yes, totally agree. Just hang on in there till everybody else dies. That's the plan.
Yes, but the danger is now theatre might die.
One of the things that's really kind of struck Ado and I over the last few months is how one keeps oneself motivated to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
How are you managing that? I mean, you seem really upbeat, you know, you always
I'm
do.
usually so dour.
You're not at all. So what are you doing? What is your kind of little regime? I'm going running every other day. Oh, tiny little run, but
Yeah.
and I'm doing yoga as well, which, and I'm learning French, even though I speak it anyway, I'm trying to get fluent. So, these little things, tiny little achievements for me each day, but, people do things differently. What's your kind of,
I
what
think
do you do?
Joe and I were fortunate that about just between 18 months and 2 years ago, we realized that routine in our life was really important. We've always been fairly routine anyway, but when obviously you've got the kids are going to be up, so you have to get up because the kids are up. There's no kind of like negotiation about that. That's going to get me out of bed because Barney's got to get to school, and all those sorts of things. So, but there's loads of stuff we put in place that has just really boringly cemented our lives in kind of there's a book called The Miracle Morning that we read a little while ago, which gave you a kind of structure to your morning. So we started I wake up every day, I do some reading, I then go out and do exercise at 6:20 in the morning in the garden. That was we're doing this before the kids are up, so we have a bit of time together before the kids are out. I know we have a set, like, we know what, this is really dull, we know what clothes washing is going to be done, so that it just keeps kind of like ticking over. We know the food we're going to basically eat is all kind of just to take the sort of boring choices out of life. And it's really frustrating if your washing baskets are all exploding everywhere and all that sort of stuff. So just to get that nonsense out. And I think having routine helps you to recognize when probably you're in a bit more of an emotional state than you're ready to admit, or in a bit more kind of emotional spiritual difficulty than you're ready to kind of comprehend. Because if the routine starts to go, then you can sort of say, oh, hang on, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And it's great to get the endorphins going in the morning and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
hats off.
Thanks.
Chapeau. So you go out into your garden, both of you, at 6:20 in the morning,
Yeah,
and you do some kind of cardiovascular.
we do a hit. So Joe got us onto the Joe Wicks thing before the rest of the country, or because
Oh my God. Okay.
that was happening. I mean, I actually didn't go out today because it is absolutely lashing it down.
Oh.
I just did some kind of lazy sit-ups, but
Okay.
so that's the idea. So we
Amazing.
built in structure, which is we've just kept kind of disciplined and going on. That's fine until I think the thing that I massively miss is creative collaboration. And I find that in, like, I've joined the kind of sourdough craze, because at one point you couldn't get
God.
all that sort of stuff.
Banana bread. Did you do the banana bread?
Didn't do banana bread.
Okay.
No. But like, and I'm still fairly rubbish at making sourdough loaves. But
It doesn't
but
matter. Doesn't really matter.
there's a sense of like, this didn't exist before and now it does, and that gives me a little thrill. I really enjoyed cutting my kids' hair, and I'm gonna open a salon called COVID Cuts after this. But like, just doing kind of something that is a little bit creative. They looked a mess before, now they look lopsided, or now they look just a bit different. Like, you've made a change. I've just missed the kind of, and the thing about voiceover for me that is a massive negative is that I'm entirely on my own, because I record and I edit and I deal basically with the internet, and it's just a written list of stuff. I'm not dealing with people.
Yeah.
I massively miss that. And
Yeah.
the rehearsal room is, I would live in a rehearsal room happily forever. And I
Mm.
guess that's why Hot Buckle really suited me, because we did live in a rehearsal
Yeah.
in one sense. When we were doing David Copperfield, and we were kind of we were finishing at 4:00 the script, but we would come in when the kids had gone to bed. We would, the instruments would come out, we'd be tinkering with the music and that sort of stuff. It was this kind of lived in rehearsal.
Yeah. What
Yes.
do you think about the support for the arts in the UK?
I don't know. I think I was grateful to get the self-employment scheme, but it feels a bit kind of coming cap in hand, doesn't it? And waiting to know if they were going to do a second one, and now they're going to do a third at some, at some point, and it feels we probably haven't got the best government for caring about the arts. The money that's gone into theatre, the money that's coming out now, theatres are announcing money at the moment. It seems to be enough to kind of stop the bleeding till March. I think that the Arts Council want it spent by March, and so after that, who knows? But at the same time, I do appreciate the fact that any, whatever debt we're racking up at the moment, at some point may need to be paid, and theatre does feel like a luxury. It also feels like, I guess I'm really aware that theatre, I'm like, my life feels far less fulfilled without it, but I'm in the massive minority there. So I don't think you could kind of
Yeah.
enforce theatre on everybody.
No.
So I just don't know. I don't see the big sums that the government are seeing and understanding it. It's just a bit like, I don't know how theatre really comes through this, because it's the perfect storm in that if you can work out how to keep your venue open, then you've got to work out how can you get enough audience in to run a venue and keep them safe. Then you've got to work out how do you do rehearsals and keep the actors safe. Then you've got to work out how do you do a play where you can't go near each other, or do you have to live together? How does that work? And then you've got to convince an audience that are not generally, but majoritively made up of older people who are in the danger spot.
Yeah.
You've got to convince them to come back into the theatres and sit indoors with other people.
Yeah. I mean, basically, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
It's that simple, really.
So,
I think,
So what do we do?
I don't know. I think that's the thing, isn't it? I don't think it will ever be the same.
And how does this doesn't, there's no natural end to this.
No.
Even if a magical vaccination came out, that
Yeah.
we've still got months and months, but
Yeah.
even if that
And
happened,
I think people are frightened. How do you see things a year from now?
I mean, I kind of think we're going to be my instinct is we're going to be in the same place socially this time next year, that we'll still have to be socially distanced. We'll still be balancing on these tiers of flipping into 1 and 2 and 3, and what that means. How on earth can you plan a kind of a theatrical event if you don't know what? Yeah.
And I think also what's frustrated me recently is the kind of the ignorance of the corporate world in terms of what it means logistically to create a piece of theatre. You cannot afford to do a show once.
No.
You've got the rehearsals, the set building, the costumes, all of that. Therefore, it's no good in doing a tour and just hoping you'll get 1 or 2 theatres. You have to plan for a set amount of income. So you cannot even begin to think about touring until you can be absolutely damn sure that you are going to get paid. So, and I found also recently that again, there's this attitude that for some reason people who work in the arts will do stuff for nothing because we're desperate. There's this real sense that what we do just doesn't have any kind of financial value to it. It's this wonderful cultural value, and we're all so proud. It's so wonderful that we want to be a part of it, want to be close to it. Just nudge noses with it, but we don't want to pay for it.
No, absolutely. And yes, and there is a desperation, isn't there? Because loads of, like, I'm fortunate enough that I got the voiceover stuff done, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
and but all the jobs that actors normally do, the waiting, the bar staff, the events, that doesn't exist anymore. So of course people are desperate, and of course they're going to be taken advantage of, and
Yeah.
that's disgraceful. It's awful. And then I think we've got a bigger problem that in terms of adapting, lots of things have adapted to being online. And for instance, this wouldn't have happened. This conversation wouldn't have happened if I had to drive to where you live to kind of,
Yeah.
So in one sense, it opens the world up brilliantly. But I don't think theatre is, easy to adapt online. When the National started to stream some of their shows, as lots of theatres did, I watched the first 5 minutes of One Man Two Governors and just had to. It was so embarrassing. These
Yeah.
actors shouting their heads off in this
So
huge
hammy, isn't it?
so hammy.
Yeah.
And then we're telling people, oh, you really should go to theatre. Theatre is wonderful. Theatre is amazing. And then you got the choice between watching what you want to watch on Netflix or Disney Plus, and then watching these shows which just look awful. It doesn't adapt very well.
It
to this
doesn't. It
world.
just doesn't, because the whole point of it is you are there as part of an experience with thousands of people, hundreds, or even just tens of people around you experiencing the same thing. But it's hugely fearful. And I think that the fear for me is, I'm really passionate about the history of theatre and where it's all come from. And, it comes from sitting around a fire, telling each other stories. And ultimately that's what it is. And that's what it still is. And you cannot do that on camera.
Well, you can't do that. I mean, obviously, Netflix are storytelling.
Yes.
It's just the modern version of it.
Yes,
And I don't think
exactly.
storytelling will ever be we can't exist as a society without storytelling.
No. So,
but my fear is we could exist without theatre. And that's my kind of right at the start of this, I was like, how do we come back from this?
Yeah. This is a weird question, but what makes you the saddest about the situation at the moment?
For me personally, it is the loss of theatre. It is that is one of the reasons why I live in London, and one of the reasons why I haven't wanted to move out of London is because I was such a regular theatre goer, and so it is that is definitely the saddest thing.
Okay.
For me, it just
And what would you like your legacy to be when you are? How old are you now, Andy?
39.
So let's say 40. Let's round it up to 40.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I'm really
when you're 70
Yeah.
and you're sitting on your rocking chair with your grandchildren around you, what would you like to have achieved in the next 30 years that you will be looking back on?
Well, I'd like to have achieved. I'd like to still be working in creative collaboration. That's what I'd like to. I'd like to have achieved a kind of a working life of that. I don't. Anybody that goes into the arts shouldn't be thinking about how much money they could make. I don't expect to be super wealthy. I don't expect to be super well known. But I do want to have many, many experiences of creatively collaborating with many different people. That's, that is what I'd like. I'd like to, I put my family relationship above my kind of professional work life as I've done, chosen not to do the tours and all that sort of stuff. So I hope that there would be strong bonds within the family, and hopefully by that time there'll be grandkids and all that sort of thing. In January, the original plan was that this is when my youngest gets kind of extra hours for childcare from the government, and that opened a load of doors. There was possibility there, which are now there's no doors to walk through, but that was going to be a really nice time. And it was going to, I felt like it was going to start a kind of period of, this is when I can focus on work a bit more than I've been able to. So I hope that happens. I hope there is something particularly special about creatively collaborating in storytelling, and
Mm.
because obviously there's other ways of creatively collaborating, but doing that in storytelling, yeah, I just want to live in a rehearsal room. That's what I want to do.
I love it. That's
And do
amazing.
that for a long time.
Great. Thank you.
Pleasure.
It's been an honor.
It's been a joy to see you.
Really fabulous. Thank you so much. So interesting. Just really, just so valuable to hear everything that's going on. I think specifically because you're in London as well. You know, that's going to be really interesting to understand for a lot of people. So thank
Yeah.
you. And I'm just so pleased that you're doing okay and that everyone's fine and you're plodding on.
Yeah, I mean, we are doing okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's all any of us can do,
I
really.
think that's true. I
Yeah.
think definitely it's definitely, I know you're coming into land as I pick it up again, but like it's definitely rougher this time around, isn't it? The second
Yeah.
wave, all the sort of novelty and
It's
kind
total.
of
Yeah.
optimism has gone. I think everybody should expect this is going to be a harder time.